Hey, Miles here at Tactical Hyve. It is another Monday, and we are going to continue our series of how to shoot a pistol accurately. Today is all about dry fire, followed by Thursday we'll be doing live fire, and we're going to continue with how to take multiple shots fast and accurately. So if you're new to the series, make sure to watch the previous videos because everything's going to make a lot more sense if you do. You might actually get lost because there's a lot of little details that I'll be talking about that you may be unfamiliar with. So take a look at the playlist there. I would start from week 1 and just work your way to this video. Those of you who have kept up with the series, we are going to continue on taking multiple shots. And we already discussed that when we're dealing with multiple shots, grip becomes huge, super important. You have to have a good grip that has good leverage, good friction, and there are other principles that we'll be talking about later on, but it also has to be consistent, which is why I've been really harping on hyper-focusing on your grip pressure, making sure the mechanics are good every single rep, every single trigger squeeze, because while you're shooting live fire, you need to make sure that all the mechanics are there. It seems simple, but it really is not easy. So you might be doing a few reps, think you got it, but you really need to hone it in by doing a lot of practice. Dry fire, dry fire, dry fire. So thus far, we've covered how to maximize your leverage over the gun by having a nice high and tight grip, and as well as talking a little bit about the support hand, okay? Last week, we talked about also C-clamp pressure here. What kind of pressure do we need with this hand? And it's primarily forward and back, all right? There's lots of different techniques, but that's very common, okay? And then we did a live fire exercise to hone it in, and there was nothing magical about the live fire exercise, but you're paying attention to every squeeze. After you're squeezing the trigger, you're paying attention. Do you have the proper C-clamp pressure, okay? Now what we're going to be doing, remember, lots of things we can cover with grip, okay? So we're just taking baby steps, okay? Now we're going to be covering, okay, what this hand should do. If this hand is moving forward and back, we're now going to be focusing on our left hand. Now, similarly to the firing hand, your support hand, or some people call it control hand, is going to be squeezing in a lot of directions, right? But, okay, there's a common, if you go to a lot of instructors, most of them will say that if this is forward and back, then this is crushing down primarily left and right. Now, remember, there's a key word there, primarily. You're going to be squeezing all over, you know, all around this grip, okay? But what we're going to be doing right now is this. With your support hand, once again, if the firing hand is forward and back, the support hand is going to be crushing more laterally, okay? You're going to be squeezing all around this grip, but this would be left and right, like you're crushing down, okay? Lots of details to discuss, but we're going to keep it simple, okay? Here, what we want though is this. When you have your support hand up, as we talked about in previous videos, you want this thumb out of the way. So this is going to give you this real estate so that you can place your support hand or control hand here on your grip. Remember, there are lots of different techniques, okay? Techniques are a matter of style. It's going to be personal to your shooting style, hand, so on and so forth. So I'm not discussing that, okay? So some of you might be a little bit lower, some of you might do this. It's all, you know, it's all style. So once we're here though, what I want you to do is when you're squeezing left and right with the support hand, also ideally, and most instructors are going to teach this as well, you want to make sure there's no gaps here. Close it up, get maximum friction on this grip. So if there is some grip that you can put your support hand or control hand on, utilize it, okay? Because we want to create a nice, consistent human vise, all right? So when we are doing this here, okay, the reason why I'm showing you this angle is that a lot of people, particularly those who do a lot of martial arts, grappling, wrestling, things like that, they really have strong forearms and grip. If you tend to squeeze really hard, like if you were shaking someone's hand really hard, look what's going to happen in this area. I break the grip, okay? And that's because I'm thinking of gripping this gun like a handshake, and it's going to break this apart, where shot after shot, when I'm taking shots, it can break, and that leads to inconsistency in my shots. Grip is all about, when you're taking multiple shots, you need a consistent grip. That human vise, you don't want it to change, okay, the pressure. So when I'm here, okay, instead of gripping and trying to break this, I want to put the pressure left and right on this grip. And I want to focus on also clamping down here right in the back, okay, clamping down so there is no space. Okay, see that? I do not want this. So that is the first part. It sounds very simple, but you need to hyper-focus on this, because how many of you, those of you who are just starting or rather new to shooting, when you start shooting, you take multiple shots, and then all of a sudden you have to regrip. You take a few shots, oh, I got to regrip. Multiple shots, I got to regrip. Okay, that's something that happens very often. It's very common because people who dry fire are not dry firing as they would shoot live fire. Okay, what I mean by that is your technique, the grip pressure, everything you're doing dry without actually shooting should be the same as live fire. So what I'd like you to do is, for your dry fire exercise today, you already know what to do with your firing hand. Your left hand here, again, you're going to, one way you can do this is again technique, but one thing you can do is, if in order to establish a good grip, there are different techniques. You can search for the trigger guard here. With your index finger from your control hand, you can hit that trigger guard, then you can begin to wrap around, okay? That's one way. Some people will look for the middle finger. You hit your middle finger, then you begin to wrap around without creating any space. So if I hit this and I'm too far out, then I want to make those adjustments and then find where that touch point was. So if my touch point was right above my knuckle, okay, hand sizes are different, finger sizes are different. So for me, if it's the knuckle and my index finger, that for me is the proper point. So I'll remember that, okay? So once you've established this grip, last week we were hyper-focused on pressure here. Now you need a hyper-focus on your control hand, okay, your support hand. And so you're going to be taking multiple shots while we're doing this dry, okay? You can, so you're gonna be racking the slide, you're gonna present, just like we've been doing. This shouldn't be new. You're gonna present, and then I want you to take 2 or 3 shots. When you do take multiple shots, you want to make sure that you're hyper-focused on the pressure. Did the pressure of my support hand change while I was pulling the trigger, or did it remain consistent? You want to make sure it's remaining consistent. Just like we did last week, we focused on this, now we're focusing on this, okay? And if you did well last week, this should be there, and you're just adding this as a layer. Now, some of you might be asking, okay, how am I taking these multiple shots here? I highly recommend you get a device like this. This is called a dry fire mag. I'm just gonna pull out here. It allows you, I referred to this, I think, in week 1 or week 2. There are tools to make your dry fire exercises easier, particularly if you're just starting out. I highly recommend this, guys. I'll leave a link below. You guys can check it out, but this is gonna allow you to take shots without having to rack the slide every single time, okay? We're gonna dive into a lot more advantages of using a system like this later on, but for now, what we're doing is it allows you to take multiple shots, and you can change the spring weight of these dry fire mags so that it matches the tension, the proper weight of your trigger. The reason why I recommend you do this for the dry fire exercises is I said that while you're shooting, you wanna maintain pressure, okay? And as I'm beginning to pull the trigger, this, just so you're aware, the trigger, the spring right now is pretty heavy, so you're gonna see the muzzle dip. This isn't the exact weight. I wanna swap out the spring here, but that's another thing that'll help you. It'll show you if you have good trigger control, but that's gonna be a topic for later on. But right now, what I'm doing is I'm hyper-focusing on my pressure, and while I pull the trigger, squeeze the trigger maybe 2 or 3 times, I am paying attention to my grip pressure. Did it change? If it changed, what do you need to do? Do the same rep and really hyper-focus. Keep the same pressure. So I could be here, I punch out, maybe I take 2 shots. Finger on the trigger, prep my trigger, 2 shots. I have a good follow through, I reset and prepped. You can reset and prep with a dry fire mag here. I'm at that point. I'm asking myself, do I have good pressure? And you can revert back to last week where, do I have good pressure with my C-clamp? Yes, good, check that box. Do I have good pressure with my support hand? Yes, I do, perfect, that was a good rep. Now you do it again. Maybe I do 3 shots this time. 1, 2, 3. I reset and prep. I'm asking myself, do I have good pressure with my firing hand? Yeah, I have good C-clamp pressure. Do I have good pressure with my left hand? Yeah, good rep, okay? I might also do this. I might go, did my grip break apart? If it broke apart, then something is off. Okay, so the dry fire practice for today is actually really simple, okay? I will share what to do if you don't have a dry fire mag, but again, I do highly recommend it. But before going to precisely what to do today, I do want to talk about how much pressure you should be applying with your support hand. So your support hand, generally speaking, I've not met any instructor who has gone against the saying that you should be applying, if one hand is going to apply more pressure, it should always be your support hand or control hand. That's why they call it the control hand, where it is actually providing more pressure and control in your grip rather than the firing hand, okay? So here, if you are going to be gripping your gun, the rule is this, kind of a very simple thing to understand. Grip the gun as hard as you can without disturbing the sights, okay? So you don't want your sights or your red dot to be shake, but you want a good, nice grip. And then also grip it just hard enough to the point where it's not affecting your trigger finger, because the more you squeeze hard, you can lock up this trigger finger. It's going to be hard to actually articulate quickly. So if you find that your sights or red dot are moving, just back off your grip, okay? Back off so that it's steady. And then also, if this is really stiff or not moving quickly, loosen up the pressure on your firing hand a little bit. But the support hand should be crushing down as hard as you can without disturbing the sights. That said, specifically what I want you to do for this dry fire session, 15 minutes, 3 times this week, is you can do 2, 3, 4 shots. Okay, I'm gonna demonstrate what you would do with a dry fire mag. 2, 3, 4 shots, you're just gonna present. I'm asking myself the question, so I have good pressure on my support hand, good pressure on my firing hand. That was a good rep, finger off the trigger, and I'm back. Then maybe change it up, 2 shots. I'm doing my reset and prep, everything from previous weeks. Then you do it again, maybe 4 shots, 5 shots. As I'm pressing the trigger, I'm paying attention to my pressure, okay? Now let's say you don't have a dry fire mag, okay? You can do this, okay? You are going to, and depending on the gun you have, but most striker fire pistols like Glocks, SIGs, there's so many kinds there. Your trigger may pin back, so right here, see how it's pinned here? What you can do is same thing, but you're just going to slap down on the trigger here. We'll be talking about different things when it comes to trigger control later on. Remember, I'm not trying to overwhelm you, but for now, what I want you to do is, if you don't have a dry fire mag, you're gonna push out, take 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots as I discussed in your head, and all you're doing, I'll do it in 2 angles here so you can see, I'm paying attention to my grip, okay? Not necessarily if the sights are moving. Again, we'll talk about that later on, but I'm doing this from here, so maybe I do 2 shots. That was 2 shots, right? Just like that. And I'm paying attention to the grip. The reason why I'm doing this and really harping on this to pay attention to your grip, because if you do this correctly, then it's going to be better during live fire. If you do this incorrectly, what's going to happen is you're going to be breaking shots, live fire shots, maybe 2, 3, then you're going to realize that, oh, I have to re-grip because my grip was coming apart because you didn't spend the time to really hone in during dry fire. Dry fire is extremely important. Many will argue it's even more important, okay, than live fire, so really take it seriously. Give it about 15 minutes. Again, you can vary up the reps. I do highly recommend something like this. You'll be seeing me use this a lot in the series as well, just because it's a handy tool. As you get more advanced, you may or may not want to use it, but I do think that if you're a beginner or intermediate shooter, it comes in handy. So that was a longer video for just something, you know, talking about support hand pressure, but it's really important. So give it a go. It's going to prepare you for your live fire session on Thursday. If you have any questions, leave it in the comment section below. And as always, if you like the video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next, well, actually on Thursday.